Well, today, as introduced, I am the CEO and co-founder of Nutmeg, but I'm also an incredibly proud director of Innovate Finance, and it's wonderful to see you all here, and thank you for your support for this event. I'm here to unveil the 100 women who have made it to the summit of the Fintech industry, and this list of those women will be in your goodie bags as you step out today and scattered around next door as you're having lunch. It's a task I'm delighted to do, but you may think, given I'm unlikely to ever make this list, I am slightly unqualified for. However, as a CEO and business builder, I have to remember that I represent less than half of our potential marketplace. Women make up more than 50% of our population, and indeed, as us men die younger, that imbalance grows larger. For fintech companies, the reality is that the target market is often far more skewed towards women. Recent research by Prudential shows that over 90% of the control for day-to-day household spending lies with women. We at Nutmeg have done our own research, and it's not just about who makes the financial decisions. It's also about the investment approach and the risk appetite that's different between the genders. So, for example, when we ask people, would you, for £100, eat a bowl of dog food? 3 times as many men said yes as women. 30% of women said that they hide their savings for fear their partner will spend them. Women prioritize debt repayment over investing. Women are more prudent long-term, and I can't deny it because it's statistically proven, better self-investors. It's impractical for men to assume that we can build businesses to meet the unmet needs of women without female input, just as it's impractical for older generations to understand how younger generations feel and react to situations. Age diversity, another huge topic we need to cover another time. But by making sure that we have representation of our customers in our companies, we can be assured of better, more innovative product solutions. And having females in leadership positions should not be because of quotas. It should be recognition that by doing so gives our business a competitive advantage. We are thrilled to be recognizing the female leaders of fintech today. Thank you to Erovina, who have been fantastic supporters of this research. And I hope that each of us can take a moment to consider our position on diversity in our workplace. Many of the leaders you'll see in this book are here today, and I encourage you to engage with them and to pick their brains on this subject. One such person is our next speaker, and our final speaker before lunch, Imogen Hatcher. Imogen is president of S&P Capital IQ, a leading provider of multi-asset class and real-time data, research and analytics to institutional investors, investment and commercial banks, and corporations and universities around the world. She initially joined the company in 2014 as Chief Commercial Officer and was responsible for leading S&P Capital IQ's global sales, client services, marketing, and research network activities. Thank you very much, and I hope you get one of these and very much put it into practice.
Thanks, Nick, for the introduction. They were a little bit worried backstage. He said, "Did they know your entire life story?" I went, "No, we're just going to keep it brief." So I do realise that I'm the last thing that stands between you and lunch, so we will keep this pithy and to the point. But to begin with, how appropriate that we're focusing today on the topic of diversity, with yesterday having been International Women's Day. The first International Women's Day was held in 1911, and yesterday thousands of events all over the world focused on the achievements of women in the economic, political and social spheres, We need to expand the presence of women as well as other minorities within our industry to ensure that we have the appropriate skill set to flourish and they can go on and lead organizations in the 21st century. So for a fact, in the S&P 500 index, obviously it's got 500 companies in it, 26 have female CEOs. And even if we go down the ranks a little further to the ranks of senior vice president, tens of thousands of those kinds of roles exist in the S&P 500, just about 600 are given to women. So I have to believe, from my experience working primarily in Europe and Asia up until recently, that that's not just an American issue, that's very much a global issue. And the question really is, why? When women outnumber men in the general population, as well as in universities and colleges. So what can we do about that? How can we better tap into the talent, their training and preparation, their management, and their leadership skills? And at a time when our customers, frankly, the complexions and the gender of those customers and client base is widening consistently, why shouldn't our senior managers and our employees look rather more like those customers? So, and if meeting client demand and making clients feel more comfortable with the people that they're dealing with isn't reason enough to bring about change, aren't we leaving aside an awful lot of talent, of inspiration, of innovation by not creating greater opportunity through diversity in our companies? Quite honestly, this underrepresentation in financial services in general and fintech in particular is something that I've experienced throughout my career. I started life at Lloyds Bank rather a long time ago, and on their graduate scheme, I lasted 11 glorious months. And very early into my tenure there, Sir Jeremy Morse, who was then chairman of the bank, came to visit, and we were all very excited. You know, the branch was redecorated, everybody got ready. And Sir Jeremy walked in and said he was going to be introduced to the graduate. So I was shoved to the front of the line and dusted off as well. And he looked straight past me and he said, "So where is he?" And I said, no, that's me, Sir Jeremy. So he looked at me rather disappointed and he said, "So what was your degree in?" So I proudly said, because it always is a good line, "Arabic, Sir Jeremy." And he looked me firmly in the eye and he went, "Bloody useless," and walked on, crushed. So to mentors, perhaps, okay? You know, it really is important that we have mentors, that we are able to give younger people in our organizations leadership by someone who looks like them, for instance. And how can we accelerate the process of growing our future leaders from more diverse backgrounds with more than just mentoring, with more than just that one-to-one experience? So at my firm now, S&P Capital IQ, we've found that employee resource groups, ERGs, are an increasingly important part of changing the culture of our organization. We have a whole range of them, and the research bears out our own experience that they really do assist recruitment, retention, talent development, and outreach in very powerful ways. So through our range for Black and Hispanic groups, Asian, women's networks as well, LGBT too, I'm going to pull out just two of them. One is the first one that we ever started 10 years ago, which is our Women's Initiative for Networking and Success, the WINS group. And the other one is Women in Technology, WIT. Both, by the way, welcome men, and indeed some of the exec sponsors are men within the organization, but they were started largely to attract female employees. So WINS has been going, as I said, for about 10 years, and it's been adopted across our global employee program in something like 25 countries. And it really, what WINS does as well is kind of really form the center of our mentoring program. I was lucky enough shortly after I joined the business, about 5 days in actually, to be invited to the WINS Global Annual Conference. Huge conference, external speakers, many of whom really were inspirational. The one that I remember particularly was a lady called Barbara Corcoran, an American lady who appears on a show called Shark Tank, which is their equivalent of Dragon's Den. So she's like the Deborah Beaton in the US. Phenomenal woman, huge energy. started with absolutely nothing and achieved a sale of her real estate business, something like $57 million. So everybody was completely pumped up, very excited. You know, here we could all be Barbara. There was only one slight hitch when the inevitable question came, so how do you balance, you know, work-life? How do you balance having kids? Because she talked about her kids. And she rather shamefacedly admitted that she'd made her first $57 million before she actually got pregnant for the first time. So it wasn't entirely helpful in that respect, but you know, she went on to still do great things. So Women in Technology, the other resource group, only started a couple of months ago, but it's been our fastest growing. So we have, in India, we have a huge population of employees. Up in the north, in Gurgaon, something like 1,800, and further south in Hyderabad, nearly 4,000 employees, largely in the technology and data space. And Women in Technology was formed and already has something like 500 members in those two sites. And it's really brought women together in a very positive way. Friendships have been established, support has really been set up. And there was a huge amount of honesty, particularly in southern India. I'm not sure how many of you will know, but it's a much more conservative type culture. So for people to really talk about things that they're worried about, personal things, you know, to put their hand up and ask for help is quite difficult to do. And WIT, that program, has really helped them to do it. And when you think about it, you know, in Western countries and developed countries, we struggle in diversity groups sometimes, struggle for equality in pay and in leadership roles. But in many cultures, there are much more profound things that they need to think about, greater barriers to professional growth and success. And having that forum for open discussion is very powerful. One important part that we're going to get involved in, and I think this is incredibly important, is Gurgaon is situated near Delhi. And Gurgaon, like Canary Wharf in London, is you know, sort of glass shard, cyber city, amazing. But like Canary Wharf, it borders on some of the poorest and most diverse boroughs in the country. You will, I'm sure, be familiar with some of the terrible things that have been going on in Delhi in terms of, you know, women's safety, indeed with the new film that's come out around the gang rape and everything that went on with that. And women were talking very openly through WIT about what that meant. Now, we as a responsible employer obviously make sure that women are taken to and from work in safe transport, they have escorts when they need it, that's not an issue. But we really do believe that we have a responsibility in those kinds of areas to make sure that we're trying to do something about the root cause. Now, we, as a large American organization, can hardly traipse in there and say, it's all right, we'll sort it all out for you, we know what you need to do, let's come in and educate people. We have to be a lot more subtle than that. We have to work with local NGOs, we have to work with government as well, in terms of educating young men about, you know, how to deal more appropriately with women, and particularly women in the workplace too. And I think that the employee resource group and the support that we can give to them, and also the community outreach that can come from that, is an important part of what we do. And frankly, getting involved in that sort of work, I believe, humanizes us all a little bit more. So having a personal connection to a company is important, particularly to the millennials of both genders, and it's incumbent upon us to keep this in mind as we start to think about how we attract younger talent into our organizations. We have to make it more than just a policy, but also a practice, a cultural practice, to treat everyone equally, kindly and compassionately, and reward work and innovation with both moral as well as material rewards. I think as leaders, we are called on not just to set goals and directions, but also the tone for our companies as well. So to close out, and this certainly isn't going to be any great news for any of you, that our work-life environment is changing rapidly. Going back to the corking question that was asked of Barbara, you know, people often say, so how do you manage that work-life balance? I think if we just think about it as we have one life. Now, how I choose to think about how often I interact with children, friends, community, and work, that's going to fluctuate at any given time. And I think to worry about that work-life balance is just another percentage or ratio that we have to think about. I'd like us to think a little bit more kind of holistically about how we manage our lives. What we find at S&P Capital IQ, and we've done an awful lot of work around organisational health over the last few months, is that people develop fastest when they feel responsible for their own progress, and they're supported by programs such as the ones that I've mentioned here around mentoring. We will need to help people out of the passenger seat and into the driving seat when it comes to their own development, and we need to provide environments that will allow them to do that. There aren't any simple models, but diversity in skills, language, background, culture, they're all important and actually delightful ingredients in a successful workplace. We need to be able to experiment with new approaches that combine creative ideas in new ways and share these with others. As leaders and innovators in fintech, we have an opportunity to design and deploy the changes that will empower these diverse groups within our organizations. And we would be some kind of stupid not to leverage that huge source of talent. So to me, that critical thing is to treat employees with respect and as adults. Sometimes those people that represent diversity in our workplace have had to fight a little bit harder. They've had to be a little bit more creative, and they've had to find ways to flourish. We should make sure that through our corporate cultures that we are privileged to be able to influence, and the foundational work, say from our strong and effective employee resource groups, that we provide a fertile soil for them to grow in, an environment where everybody can be the best that they can be. To lunch, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent job. Thank you. Cheers.